So this session was about where do good ideas come from and how do you classify what's a good idea. And people got an idea in various sources of, either you feel a personal pain point or you have a particular skill or you have a particular passion on doing that. And we wanted to give as much example on how to choose what is a good idea than from a randomly chosen one or an idea someone else has passed on with you. Because if it's something you want to take into a business, then it's something that has to be so personal that you're willing to live with that idea for the next 5 years. That's one. The other thing is a startup, it only becomes a business when it gets a revenue-paying customer. So we want to expose to the students and professors actually the plethora of revenue-generating opportunities. We were very fortunate this session to have Adam from Freelancer, a company that's become really successful in 4 years of its operation, come and talk to us their ideas and how they went about the process of generating business.
Hi everyone, as Viren said, my name's Adam. I work for Freelancer. It's the world's sort of largest freelancing marketplace, and the basic goal is to link startups and small businesses with freelancers from all around the world. As Viren mentioned, my job really is focused all on international expansion into every currency, every language, every region around the globe. And I'm really here to talk to you guys today about business models and idea generation. So let me start with the first macro trend. And the first macro trend is summarized best by a quote from legendary investor Mark Andreessen: "Software is eating the world." Now, what does that actually mean? Well, it basically means that every business is one day waking up to realize that they're actually a software business. And you'll see this in the following kind of examples that I give. So the biggest direct marketing company in the world today is Google. We used to call people on phones. Today we use something like Skype. Maps, we've moved to Google Maps. We used to go to physical bookstores. Today we go online. Again, we used to actually read physical books, but today we do it on a tablet or a Kindle or something similar. Another question that goes into how you structure your business is actually, how am I going to raise money? There's a number of routes, and it kind of dictates a little bit how you kind of build your business out. The classic one, and the one that's really only become available in the last sort of 10 years, is building a business off the back of a credit card. These days, the amount of costs needed to actually, just get a website up and running and start getting some customers is actually not very high at all. It might be a couple of $1,000s or even less. And I'll give you some examples of that right at the end. So that's, in my opinion, one of the best ways to get started. There's crowdfunding through something like Kickstarter. The classic example here was the Pebble Watch. It was one of the first things on Kickstarter. And when they actually raised money, they kind of expected to raise, I think it was $100,000 or something like that, and they ended up raising $10 million by mistake. And it basically broke the CSS, which is like it broke the code on their website, on Kickstarter's website, that is. So that was a pretty stark example of the power of crowdfunding. And the thing is that Pebble really has not many, if any, legal obligations. They basically just got handed a $10 million check. I didn't dilute any capital, they didn't dilute any ownership of the business. They didn't have to really, put in a lot of effort. All they had to do was a good marketing campaign, and $10 million arrived in their bank account, pretty much. Venture capital is obviously an option. I like to think of it as swimming among the sharks, but it's definitely a very viable route, and it's the kind of the main route where a lot of sort of online businesses take, especially if they don't have a business model or a good one. And you'll see why I mean this later, because I believe, and it's something that I was kind of indoctrinated to at Freelancer, but it's still something that I think is really important, is that the best way to raise money of all, by far, is raising money from your customers. The best way to raise money is to make sales, because that means you're validating your business model. The money you bring in is real money that has no conditions attached other than you providing the service that you claim. And it's just sort of a great way to build a sustainable business. From the start that if you're making many sales and your business is essentially bootstrapped, it's probably going to work unless someone comes and eats your lunch.
So, very simple. Adam again spoke about 5 categories. He spoke about commissions/transactions, advertising, affiliates, referrals. Here are 5 things. I'm going to give you 18. I'm going to give you a list of 18 avenues and how you can make money. What you should do as you pick them is what's your core, and number 2 and number 3 ways you can make money. Remember, every time we try and make money from the customer in a slightly different way, every transaction is a point of friction, right? So the best way of making money, which is said freemium, is saying, I think the WhatsApp line is really cool because you sign up, it's free, automatically a year later when you've used it so much, it's a pound. Oh, sorry, it's a dollar. It's 69p, right? So those kind of ones where there's no friction to start, those are the kind of really good business models. So one is a one-time upfront charge plus maintenance, typically done in software. Right? You do a software sale and you do a 20% per annum maintenance. Cost plus contracts happen in areas where you have to do pieces of work or consultancy and you're only allowed to make a fixed profit or margin. And they happen in certain businesses where with the government where you have to do where there's disclosure. Hourly rates, if you set up a consulting business, it's basically on hourly rates, not consulting, but if you're a service provider of any kind. You have the subscription or leasing model. That's the membership. And there what people do is like LinkedIn, join 1 month for free, right? And what they capitalize on, that human beings are the power of default. That once someone signs up, it's very difficult for the person to sign out, and a lot of people just get stuck with that. Licensing, that happens in IP, intellectual property. One way of making money is through IP. Consumables is how HP and other printers make money. Printing printers as in the devices. The printers are sold extremely cheap for 45 pounds. You pay through your nose for the ink. It's also called a blades and razors model. So it's a Gillette concept where razors are extremely expensive. The blades are extremely expensive. The razor is free. The money is essentially made out of consumables, and consumables are recurring revenue, right? So it's a sticky business. People keep buying that from you over and over again. And I'll put all of these up out there. Yeah. Then you upsell. So you do a business where I experienced this. So I got my presentations done through a vendor provider in India. Now I'm getting my website. When I did my presentation, it was a fairly low fee, but obviously he did a good upsell to do a project for me. Advertising is one way, and again, on Adam's point, unless you've done something so unique and so viral that you have got such a big mass, advertising is probably not something that's going to be able to pay your bills as a true business, and it's not something you should essentially exclusively rely on. Reselling data collected, so if you're a marketplace or if you've got other technology where you actually get access to so much data that it's valuable for you to sell it like Zoopla, then that's another model. Transaction fee, similar to commissions. Airbnb, freelancer are examples of that. Usage basis as a consumption model, as much as you use, do it. Cell phone plan is like you do a contract, you get that much, 1,000 minutes as a part of it. Any additional is charged. That's a cell phone plan. So these are all fairly simple, right? You've experienced, you're aware of most of these have happened. There are some really funny business models where they don't charge you for using the service, but if you make a mistake or if you deliver it late, then the penalty charges are high. Blockbuster Video used to do this. So it's money making was not so much as mailing the movie out to you or the rentals, but if you got delayed by a day or two, the penalties were so high, and that's how they used to make money. But they didn't realize is customers didn't like that. Right? You want to please your customer. Yeah?
I'd argue Ryanair does the same thing.
Sorry?
Ryanair?
Exactly. You see, I personally will not fly any destination. I mean, if Ryanair was the only airline, that's the only time I will use Ryanair, because it's punishing. I mean, the suitcase is like 50 grams overweight, 80 euros. If you don't get a boarding pass, it's a punishing attitude. So that's how people make money.
They even sell the bags of planes, trying to...
Yeah. So
the pilot is trying to shake the plane so everyone is...
Yeah, it's like Michael Airy is not mine. Okay. But that kind ultimately it alienates customers, which is why EasyJet has become one of the favorite airlines and is growing at a rapid space. Microtransactions, ability to do things in currency other than money, hold it and then cash it out. So microtransactions is a good way of doing it. Shared savings typically happens on government projects. You're doing a project with the government, you show savings to the government and then you share, rather than getting a fee upfront, you get a savings from that. Franchising out, so you've got a restaurant concept going and then you do a franchise model, so people take your idea, do their own implementation and pay you kind of a royalty fee. Operating and maintaining is more on big infrastructure projects, and then incentive scheme referrals is what Groupon used to do. So you get a deal, instead of recommended to 3 friends, your deal is free, and they would use it to acquire people. So not all of these on their own are means of generating business. The first one was obviously the direct sale of selling something specific. That was number one.
So the next session is going to be about bootstrapping. So entrepreneurship is not like a corporate game where you have loads of money and you always have to take a little amount, leverage it to maximum effect to make it possible. So I'm going to get David Frodsham, who runs the CEO Forum for Small and Medium Enterprise, to come and share with us how do you bootstrap at a startup level to do it, and then how do you also communicate. So he's going to help us both with pitching and with bootstrapping on the next session on the 14th of January.
Let not the weeds in this garden grow tall, for they will choke the lemon.